Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Inside Nebraska podcast on the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel. He is staff writer Steve Marik. I'm publisher Zack Carpenter. And Steve, we're now 21 days as of Monday, February 27th, my birthday, actually, as a side note. So happy birthday to me. We're doing a podcast as a gift to myself. It's
Happy
funny with
birthday, boss.
it's,
I didn't
it's
know
funny
that.
with birthdays. Once you're past 21, like you kind of forget that they're even there. When I just said that, I looked at the counter. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the 27th. So
Yeah, they're not really a thing anymore after you cross 21, in my opinion.
exactly, that's why you kind of forget about it. But it's a good excuse to get a free meal or two out of it, or a
There you go.
couple free beers. So anyway, we're counting down the days. The 30 days. The 30-day mark was, I believe, February 18th was a 30-day mark until Nebraska's first spring practice on March 20th. The first of 14 practices, and then the spring game, which counts as the 15th total practice that's allotted. And today marks 21 days, and we've been on Nebraska.rivals.com. We've been running through the 30 most intriguing players on the roster heading into the spring, and to make it clear, continue to make it clear that it's not a list of the top 30 best players or ranking in that sort. It's just the 30 most intriguing guys for number of different reasons, whether it's positionally, the potential position switch, even how they could be fitting into new offensive scheme, new defensive scheme, and what have you. A lot of young guys, a lot of unproven guys, but on the list that are budding with potential. But just to run through the list, and you can check out each of these guys, what we wrote about them on Nebraska.rivals.com. We did individual one for each one, individual story. It was number 30, safety Miles Farmer, number 29, quarterback Richard Torres, and just sort of the backup quarterbacks in general behind that quarterback battle that's shaping up between Casey Thompson and Jeff Sims. Defensive back, number 28, defensive back Javier Morton, 27, defensive lineman Cameron Lenhart, the 2023 signee, four-star signee from IMG Academy in Florida. Number 26, wide receiver Janirin Bonner. 25 is edge Blaze Gunnarsson. 24, nickel Gage Stanger. 23, defensive back Kane Williams. 22 is defensive back Jalen Martin. And today's number 21 is defensive back nickel Isaac Gifford. But Steve, we wanted to we're not going to break all 10 guys down in a podcast today. Keep it a little lighter, but you guys, again, can check all those out on the website. But wanted to highlight three guys for today, and starting off with number 30, Miles Farmer. Like we've said, he's a guy that we know about. He started 11 games in 2022. Obviously missed one game with a suspension due to an arrest for a DUI, but started the other 11 games and sort of up and down a little bit. I mean, I thought he improved toward especially the back half of the year, especially physically, like not necessarily physically, because I feel like he's always sort of hasn't shied away from physical contact necessarily. I think it's the angles, the pursuit angles, and the routes he takes to the ball carrier that needed improving. I thought he stepped up his game. He, I think, set career high 11 tackles, was it 14 tackles? I think against Minnesota. But with Miles Farmer, Steve, what's your thoughts on him? And I mean, entering a new system under defensive coordinator Tony White, so there could be some opportunities for him there.
Yeah. You bring up a good point with the physicality with Miles. I really like Miles a lot more than many Husker fans do, I think, just because we always hear the bad stuff with him. And look, there were some bad moments last year and during Miles's career as a safety here at Nebraska. There's a lot of missed tackles. But, if you look at last year, and I like what you mentioned about him getting better each and every game. I mean, when they hit Big Ten conference play, he was dishing out some real blows to some of the conference's top running backs. You think of Chase Brown at Illinois, Muhammad Ibrahim at Minnesota. Those are guys that usually deliver the blow to guys trying to tackle them. But with Miles Farmer at 6'3", 205 pounds, he's your prototypical box safety. I think he can line up as maybe in a too high look as one of those safeties back there. But then once the ball gets snapped, he's at linebacker level in the tackle box, just another big body, another strong hitter down there. And of course, you'd like to see him wrap up more, but it's college football. I can't stand it when college football fans, they're like, oh, why didn't he wrap up? Why didn't he wrap up? Well, it's college football. If you watch college football on Saturdays, nobody wraps up. I mean, you like to just say that guys need to wrap up, but you just watch it. Turn on any game. Everybody's throwing a shoulder. Everybody's throwing their head. That's kind of the tackle technique these days. But look, I agree that Miles Farmer has had some bad instances. He's had some missed tackles that made him look really poor out there. But when I look at the 2023 Nebraska defense with Tony White as the DC, I think Miles Farmer is going to be out there somewhere. And it's really intriguing and really fun to think about in what capacity. Now, I know that Tony White has used a rover in the past, a position called the rover, and it could be several different things. It could be a safety linebacker hybrid. It could be a defensive end outside linebacker hybrid that we think MJ Sherman might be. But when I look at the tape from Syracuse, where Tony White came from, he had a 6'4", 220-pound, basically safety, big linebacker out there who can move, who can hit, just a big athlete out there. And when I look at that guy, I see Miles Farmer a lot. So I'm sure some Husker fans are going to disagree completely with me, and that's totally fine. But Miles Farmer at the end of the day, he was the second leading tackler on the defense with 73 tackles. And he really played well. I believe, in my eyes, he played well towards the end of the season. And I think he's going to be a leader on the defense. I know he made a mistake with that DUI during the season and everything, but I just really like him a lot more than others do. And I think he's going to find a spot on Tony White's defense.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points that I agree with. I mean, first off, and also mentioned that sort of that gauntlet of Big Ten running backs that Nebraska went through toward the back half of the season, or toward the end of the season. And yeah, he held his own there, I thought. Yep. And that was part of a experience level that Miles Farmer has from last year. I mean, like you said, 11 games, and he still played, have it written down, 828 snaps in 11 games, which was 44th most in the country among 782 safeties who had at least 265 snaps. That was the cutoff for those rankings, the snap rankings. And I mean, he would have been pushing 900. I mean, if he would have had that 12th game, I can't remember how many offensive plays Michigan had, because that's the game he missed, but would have been pushing 900. So he has that experience. He's part of the Huskers returned 7 of their top 11 players on defense in terms of most snaps. So you have that experience level. And what makes Miles Farmer so intriguing to me is the fact that just that up and down, the inconsistency, like you have the good and the bad, and the good is impressive, and then the bad is frustrating. I mean, I think 15 missed tackles, which was tied for most on the defense this year with linebacker Luke Reimer. But you see it there. You see all the things that make him a potential stud in the defense on this defense, but it hasn't reached that potential yet. It hasn't reached that pinnacle. And I'm curious if Tony White is going to be able to see, like you've mentioned, a different role for him, because I think he struggled in pass coverage. So I agree. I think box safety or that potential hybrid, like you said, would be a good role for him.
And what I forgot to mention, first of all, I remember watching the Northwestern game. Zach, you were in Ireland. I was watching it at home, and I would always just maybe catch a shot of the TV camera looking at Nebraska's defense. And in the background, I saw Miles Farmer, and he'd be just like barking instructions to his guys. He was an important piece of Nebraska's defense back there. It's kind of the quarterback of the DB room. I really think he was. He was playing with the first-year starter with Marquise Buford, who I think needed some help, along with a lot of the guys out there lining up. And we all saw how much Nebraska struggled on defense just to get lined up at times. And I'm going to defend Miles a little bit here. During the early parts of this season, when Eric Shenander was still around, you could tell that the defense was just very, very there's a lot to it, right? There was a lot of thinking going on and not a lot of reacting quickly. And Miles Farmer was put in some really tough situations. Go back and watch the games. There would be times, especially with Georgia Southern, where Georgia Southern would run like just a simple inside run, like through the A or B gap. And it was like the Red Sea parted. And Georgia Southern's running back would be, at 10 yards immediately without being touched. And there, Miles Farmer is just in a one-on-one situation. And of course, everybody can sit at home, be the armchair quarterback and say, I would have done better than that in a one-on-one situation against a Division I running back, but I doubt you would. It's a difficult play when you were trying to bring down a Division I running back on a one-on-one situation. So I think plenty of times Miles Farmer was put in that exact situation where he's playing the safety 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he's being asked to make a one-on-one tackle against a Division I running back with who has a heck of a head of steam. So I don't know. I just think, like I said, we can move on after this. I like Miles Farmer more than most, and I think he's going to find a spot somewhere. I know Tony White might use 3 safeties out there along with 2 corners for that 3-3-5 look. I think he's going to be out there in some capacity.
Yep. Interesting to figure out what he's going to be. That's why I can't wait for these. Hopefully we get some open practices in the spring to check him out. Him and plenty other players on the defense, because our next guy, actually all the guys we're highlighting today are on the defense, matter of fact, but the next one is number 25, edge Blaze Gunnerson. Entering his 4th year at Nebraska, and a guy who, like you said, Steve, you said off camera, he's been intriguing all 3 years he's been here. He's going to be intriguing for his 4th year. But just about the Nebraska edge group, I mean, it remains to be seen, is sort of the proverbial phrase that we've been throwing around. Remains to be seen how much Tony White utilizes that edge, or how he uses his edge. I imagine, I mean, they've used them before. I mean, like with Hassan Reddick at Temple, but with that edge group, Nebraska loses. I think it's the position that has the most attrition. I don't know that for a fact. I kind of just
well, yeah, you got Garrett Nelson out of here, O'Shawn Mathis out of here, Caleb Tanner out of here. Yeah, they're hurting at those spots that were last year might have been the strength of the defense.
Yeah, and those 3 guys, only 5 players played snaps at the edge position last year for Nebraska, and it was Nelson, Tanner, Mathis, and then Jamari Butler and Gunnerson, and 3 of those 5 are gone, and those 3 accounted for 92.1% of the edge snaps from last year. Jamari Butler then had 85 total snaps, and Gunnerson only had 69 snaps. So that's 7.9% of the snaps from the edge position are back. So that's why, just to tell you guys straight up, Jamari Butler is going to be on this list later, a little further up. There's some extra intrigue there, and we saw some things from him last year, but that's down the road. We're talking about Gunnerson now. He could arguably be higher up this list, I think, but slot him at number 25 because I think massively intriguing and important for to replace what Nebraska's losing after last year.
Yeah, he was a scout team defensive player of the year in 2021 for Nebraska. So after redshirting 2020, he played in 3 games in 2021, only 3 tackles. But then last year played in every game, made 5 tackles. But again, he's just been playing behind starter quality guys in the Big Ten for his whole career here. But now he has an opportunity, and it's going to be very, very interesting because he physically looks incredible. He looks the part of a Big Ten edge guy at 6'6", 250 pounds. I can't wait for the official team roster to update heights and weights so we can get a more accurate look at these guys. Because when you look at, if you're a fan who loves to watch and break down Zapruder film of the Nebraska social media team's workout videos or their workout pictures, it's always 2 guys. I think Thomas Fidone looks incredible, and Blaze Gunnerson looks fantastic. He's just huge and massive, and it looks good. But can he play good? That's the thing that everybody wants to know. I really like his upside, his potential. And I'm really interested to see in how he's used. I like what you mentioned before, Zach, with how Tony White is going to use these edge guys. I'm guessing, just watching a heck of a lot of Syracuse tape over the past couple of years over there, that they're going to be asked to do a lot of things. Nebraska's edge guys in Tony White's defense, they're going to be asked to rush the passer with their hand in the turf. They're going to be asked to play on a 2-point stance, set edges in the run game, maybe drop into coverage a little bit. So it's just like your standard outside linebacker edge guy that has grown in popularity with college football all over the place. So I think what Blaise Gunnerson is really good at is maybe rushing the passer. We just don't know it because we haven't seen it, and he hasn't really had the opportunity to show it. But I'm really interested in watching him maybe get that opportunity. So he's the door is open right now for Blaise Gunnerson, and I'm really interested to see if he goes through it. But he's in a loaded room with a lot of interesting faces for that edge position. We already mentioned Jamari Butler, Kai Wallen, the lone junior college product. He's in there too. I'm guessing MJ Sherman.
Yep. Another tease, Kai Wallen, another tease for the countdown.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of teases when I rattle off these names here. Kai Wallen, MJ Sherman, Chief Borders, who might play on the inside linebacker. I don't know. A little bit early here. Prince Will Umen-Yellen, Cam Lenhart, Maverick Noonan as a couple of true freshmen who might see the field. Who knows? There's a whole bunch of things that are up in the air right now. But Blaise Gunnerson, doors open. I'd like to see him walk through it and get some real playing time and some real experience to maybe show that potential that I think he has.
Yeah, and you mentioned Lenhart. He was number 27 on the list. And I mean, yep, with all this attrition that we talked about, losing that many snaps, that many prominent players at that one position, I am curious to see if any of the true freshman edge guys, the three you mentioned, yep, if they wind up probably not having a prominent role, but if they have a role, like maybe midway through the year or later in the year, once they develop and get more comfortable with the speed of the game and all that. But yeah, we haven't seen a lot out from Blaise Gunnerson other than that fall camp photo that Greg Smith took of him just looking pissed off and yoked up. It's like, all right, well, he's angry and he looks physically impressive, but like you said, can he play good? Can he play? Yeah. He looks good. Can he play good?
Yeah, there was one in my mind. It just came to me right now. Rutgers. Nebraska had their punt. Brian Bruscini had his punt blocked by Rutgers, and Rutgers looked like they were going to scoop and score that thing. Blaise Gunnerson came out of nowhere and tackled him inside the 10-yard line. The defense held Rutgers to 3 points, I believe, and obviously that was a big time play because Nebraska needed all the points they could get out of Rutgers with a win. So big time play by Blaise Gunnerson, but really just a special teams player guy. Player guy. Oh man, let's cut that out.
It's been a day and a week.
Blaise Gunnerson, yeah, hope you play this year. Let's go, buddy.
So yeah, Gunnerson, like I said, I haven't seen much from him, but booming with potential. But one guy we did see a lot from last year was nickel Isaac Gifford, and one of the more consistent defenders on the team. Even, I mean, not a star or stud by any means, but he consistently played well. I just remember that Northwestern game where he was the only guy, it seemed, who was consistently actually tackling and bringing guys down. And then throughout the year, obviously, like almost every Nebraska defensive player has ups and downs, but fairly consistent overall relative to that group. And he's coming back, and he played safety during that Michigan game when Miles Farmer was out, but he played nickel in the other 11 games. So it's interesting. Another intriguing guy. What are your thoughts on Gifford?
Yeah, I'm glad he made this list because I'm really curious to see where and what Tony White thinks of him and where he aligns in this 3-3-5, very diverse, very fluid defense that he likes to run. Because we saw Isaac Gifford be third on the team in tackles, if I'm not mistaken, with 70 tackles on the season. Played in every game, mostly as the nickel. But then he slid back to the Miles Farmer's safety spot for that Michigan game when Miles was out, and I don't think missed a beat because he has safety in his background, a former Lincoln Southeast Knight product, and he was a safety there, and then moved to Nebraska, developed kind of got bigger, physically developed, and they moved him closer to the line of scrimmage as a nickel. And I think he held up really well there. And I think he was just still learning the process, learning from JoJo Doman a couple seasons ago as his backup, and now last year when he was the guy at nickel. I think there was a learning curve for him, but I think he got better as the year went on, and especially towards the end of the season, he was one of the more sure tacklers. I know maybe some fans might disagree with that, but again, I just harp on go back and watch the games. Isaac Gifford is a good tackler. He was a sure tackler. And again, he's just like Miles Farmer. I think Isaac Gifford is going to be a guy that has a spot on Tony White's defense. Now, where? I don't know. But I think he's going to be out there in some way or form.
Yeah, I mean, those two guys that we talk about, Gifford and Miles Farmer, and then number 24 on our list was Gage Stanger. And it's sort of three guys who all not necessarily don't play the same position, but all sort of similar, I guess, skill sets of being able to, I think, be multiple chess pieces in that sort of way. And Tony White defense. But you've mentioned the Rover too, and it's just like, what is that going to look like? Is it going to change game to game based on personnel? I mean, I call it after Rob Dvorak, after his press conference last week, he was asked to describe the defense, and he just said chaos. He goes, chaos? Yeah, chaos. It was like he was questioning, and he's like, yeah, that's a good word. And then he started talking about sort of just the way that they're able to move guys around and do different fronts, whether it's five down front, 4 down front, 3-3 stack. So I'm like, I labeled it. I'm like, all right. So after hearing all that, it's like versatile chaos. That's sort of the name of the game. And I think if you have all of that, if you're having this chaos look and having all that versatility, I think it opens up for a lot more guys to get snaps because they're going to get different skill sets and they're going to be rotating guys in and out, because I think they want them to sort of be flying all over the field.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we are talking about Gage Stanger, because I think some people maybe forget about him. And I'm not going to bash you over the head because you forget about Gage Stanger, but he was a true freshman last year. He made the travel squad. He was at Michigan. He played on special teams at Michigan, and I just think he's a really intriguing cat because at 6'2", 190 pounds, he's a big, fast, and I think pretty physical defender who just, once he gets more years in the program, strength and conditioning, I'm really interested to see what Corey Campbell does with Gage Stanger, because we know about his high school accolades. He was a star quarterback safety at Millard South here in Nebraska. And he was one of my first, I guess I'll tell the story right now. He was my first football commitment that I kind of freaked out and had to be running to find a laptop. So I was boating in a lake in South Dakota, and I get a text with a heads up that Gage Stanger was going to be committing to Kansas State. So I had to wait till the boat that I was on docked on the beach. And, if you would have seen me that day, you'd see just like a skinny white guy running off on the beach and trying to find his laptop and trying to write a commitment story for Gage Stanger. But, it's pretty cool when you're talking about Gage Stanger, because he's a guy that was once committed to Kansas State. And if you know anything about college football, Kansas State, Chris Kleiman, he knows defense. That's a good program down there. And when they want you to play football for them, I think that says something. But Nebraska was able to flip Gage Stanger. Gage Stanger wanted to play for the Huskers, and he's here entering his second season. Do I think that Gage Stanger is going to be playing on the football field in 2023 for the Huskers? Probably not, but I think he's going to be, again, learning and developing. And another, like you said, a good word, chess piece, when that Tony White used when talking about maybe that specific rover spot, that safety linebacker hybrid who has a lot going on, and just a guy who's big, fast, physical. I think Gage Stanger can be exactly that in a couple of years.
Well, first off, with your recruiting story, it's hilarious. It comes to my mind like, all right, so you know the plight of being a recruiting writer. I that was my full-time beat for 3 years, and recruiting news, commitments, like they drop at some of the worst possible times. I mean, I remember about to go out with my girlfriend at the time for dinners, like plan, like nothing happened all day with work that would have interrupted it. And then 8 o'clock out of nowhere, Quinn Ewers decommits from
Quinn
Texas. And
Ewers.
yeah, Quinn Ewers decommitted from Texas. And uh, like literally as we're 2 seconds from walking out the door, I'm like, I have to write something about this because we wound up flipping to Ohio State, and we knew the decommitment was coming, but we didn't know when, and we knew the flip to Ohio State was eventually going to be coming. But it was just out of nowhere. It's like, oh yeah, this is what life's like as a recruiting writer. So I'm glad you got a little taste of that.
I did get a little taste of the old recruiting writer life. It was all right. I mean, it was a rush. It was a rush of excitement. I was like, man, I need to sprint off of this beach and get to my laptop and write about this high school kid who's committing to a college to play football. And then that's my life. But I loved it. And I like Gage. I think Gage is an awesome kid, and I'm excited to watch him develop here in Nebraska.
Yeah, I'm glad. That was the other thing I wanted to say is I'm glad you mentioned the part of like don't expect him to play much. It's only his second season, and he's one of those guys. I think. I mean, obviously, he can use some more development. Everyone can use some more physical development at that level, but I think he's fits in that bill of probably still a full season, full year away from really making significant impact. But who knows? Maybe Tony White and that staff sees something in him that they think could be valuable, and he does carve out a role. But even if that doesn't happen, I think it's such an imperative year for him. I mean, all of these second year guys that that are on this list or that we'll be talking about throughout spring ball. The Urban Meyer mantra, I can't remember the exact quote, but to paraphrase, it was essentially the first 2 years are on us. The third year is on you, meaning the first 2 years are development years where the coaching staff, the strength staff, they're responsible for building that guy up, that player up into something into an athlete that can be a contributor. And then after that, it's on you to take your game to the next level. So that's why it's so important for these second year guys in their second off season with the program to take advantage of that. And that's why Gage Stenger is one of the many of those second year players who's just massively intriguing, because that's word of the day is intriguing.
And I'm glad you added him to the list when we were figuring out how to do this list, because intriguing to me is not that he's going to be playing this season. Intriguing to me is he's a young, athletic guy who has the frame to get bigger. And intriguing to me is maybe we're talking to Tony White during the season, and we hear Gage Stenger's name as somebody who's been flashing at practice. That's intriguing to me, and that's something that I think Gage Stenger has the ability to do, because everybody, if you're a high school football fan here in Nebraska, you saw Gage Stenger do some awesome stuff at quarterback at Millard South, just an athlete. And when a guy like Chris Kleiman at Kansas State, who knows defense and who just is all about defense, wants you to play football for his program, that says something to me. And Gage Stenger had that at Kansas State. Nebraska was lucky enough to flip him. So he's just a name to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, some inside baseball here for those who want to know. I made the list. I made my list of 30 and then sent it to Steve to see. I told him, tear it apart, just shred the list, tell me what you think, what you like, what you hate. And you didn't really have that many qualms with it. There's like the order of, like, I think it was 10 through 14. I think you suggested switching up the order a little bit. And then the 30 guys mentioned, there was only 2 that you said, hey, you should make these 2 replacements, I think, but everything else looks good. I'm like, all right, I got the Steve Marik stamp of approval on these guys. I feel pretty damn good about the list, and I think we feel pretty good as a team about that list. But obviously, like I said, 21 days from spring ball, it's inching closer, and we've gone through 10 guys, to 10 of the most intriguing players so far. We'll be continuing the countdown with number 20 on Tuesday, or 28th, and trickling down all the way to number 1 as March 20th kicks it off. So got through pretty much, almost officially got through the February lull of the off season, Steve. So we're almost done, right? You ready? You ready to hit some X's and O's and actually see some ball?
Yeah, I'm ready to watch some stuff. Hopefully Matt Rule is kind to the media and lets us in and watches a little bit of spring ball. That would honestly make my year. That's awesome.
I'm optimistic for it because of how it's been so far, where everybody, all of the coaches and Corey Campbell, so Matt Rule, Corey Campbell, and all the assistants have been made available for press conferences. So that part makes me a little hopeful that we're going to get at least a little bit, even if it's those 15-minute open windows, we'll be able to see something. But that remains to be seen. That's just hope. That's just conjecture, and call it optimistic conjecture, I guess. But we'll see again, March 20th, and then is the start of spring ball, and we'll be rocking and rolling from there. As always, you can follow us, like and subscribe to this video on the Inside Nebraska YouTube channel, and visit us on our website, nebraska.rivals.com, where you can read up all about this countdown and play more stuff from Steve, myself, Greg Smith, Jeff Ekstrom on Husker baseball team, and football and recruiting. And we got it all over at nebraska.rivals.com and on this YouTube channel. But we'll be coming back again next week later this week for another show. And Steve will be grinding away the tape, basketball and football. He's pulling double duty. So again, thanks you guys for joining us, and we will catch you guys again next time.